Hello guys, today we'll be learning how to link our front end to our back end. Then we'll be interacting with a database, but not a real database. We'll be using an example. We just create an object and then we use it in form of a database. Also, we'll be learning about useState, useRouter, and some other concepts of React. And I hope with this tutorial you should be able to have at least a background knowledge about how all these things work in the background. So let me quickly show you what we'll be doing. Okay, we'll be having a login page whereby you can actually log in. Then to redirect us to our dashboard page. As you can see, welcome to your dashboard. We are glad to have you explore your account's details and manage your preferences. If you check my last video, you will discover that we're actually talking about footer page, main footer and all. So we just injected this on our page. So basically you can actually call logout and it will direct us back to our logout page. Okay, so as simple as this is, you will see some of the codes we'll be writing in order for us to achieve this, although we might not really be styling our home page, our login page like so, but at least it will have the core functionality. So let's dive in. Okay, so let's create our API endpoint, but before then let's run our development server. Or we can just do some things before. So let's create our API endpoint. Let's call this posts. So we'll be using post requests and async. This is our arrow function. Okay, so let's create a database object. You can just go above here and then do something like const db equals, then we'll call this username. You can say let's say Danny. Password, you can call it, let's say 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so we've created our db, so this will represent our database. Then we can actually pass the request because we'll be making a request to this endpoint. So basically, so let's use the structuring to get the username and the password from our request objects. Okay, so we do request.json. So we can actually check if the user did not actually input either a username or a password. Then we can actually do something. What should we do? Let's return a next response from next server. Okay, .json. Then we call success first. Well, this is just my own way of doing things. I just like calling success because if you are using fetch API, you can actually have numerous or bunch of stuff, although you can still check for status quo 200 response and all, but just like I prefer returning a JSON response that contains a success and probably a message or an error. So in this case, this is an error. So you can say please input a username and a password. Okay, so inside here we can pass a couple of things like status quo, application, the content type like application slash JSON. You can actually do that. So but for this you'll be passing a 400 request since it's a bad request. Put in a curly brace. Okay, so that settles that. So we now need to check we need to do some validation, like check if the username and the password that the user is actually inputting is inside our database. If it's inside our database, then we allow the user to log in. Otherwise, return a response saying, oh, invalid email or password. So we can do a check and say if username is equals to, you can use a strict operator. If username is equals to db. So but if you are using a database, you have to call the name of the document, or the name of the document and all. But for this we have to call db, since this username and password is inside this db. So we have to call db dot, we have to check it against our username. But in this case, since the username and the password must be correct, so we have to check it, use AND operator. If username is equals to use db.username and password that we are getting from the user is also equals to db.password, then we can do something. We can then return the next response .json. You can do success. This will be true. Then you can just return a message saying login successful. So here we can pass an object and call this 200. Although by default nextjs will return a 200 response, so we don't even need to pass the 200 here. Automatically they will help us to return 200 so long this route is running. Okay, oh, we are writing it in our action. Okay, so let's cut this out. Let's place this in our route handler because this is our entry point. So otherwise, if this does not hold, the login does not hold, then we simply return a next response .json and call success first. Then our error will be invalid credentials. Okay, so this one will be unauthorized. That is, the user is not authorized to access the route 41. Okay, good. Although you can still put this in a try catch so as to get error, so as to catch for error. But for this tutorial, you might not really be needing that. Just do some little check. Okay, I think with this it should work. npm run dev. So let's run our development server. Then let's come to postman and do some setup. Raw, we are using raw. Although you can use depending on your use case, you can use other type like form data, you know, there are a couple of stuff you can use it, but for this tutorial we'll be using raw. So basically let's call our username. So we are expecting a username for our user, which should be let's say it should be Danny, but we'll be testing with invalid username for now to test our application logic. So let's pass password. This is expected from the user as well. So let's pass a wrong password. Okay, let's see. Okay, our application is already okay. So now we can actually make a request now. Yeah, let's make a request and see. Compiling. Bad request. Okay, please input a username and a password. Okay. Are we supposed to have this? Okay, let's pass a valid details and see. We are passing this because that's what we assume to be in our database. Just input a username and a password. I'm getting error. Just input if not user or not password. Please input a valid username and password. Switch valid credentials. You have username Danny 12345 12345 request. Okay, since we are using async, of course request.json is expecting a promise, and you know the way promise actually works is that we have to await it. We have to call await. So let's await the request.json and see. Valid details. Internal server error. Important module instruction is not a function. Post request. Export default. Yeah. Do we even need all this? Let's make the request again. Native method exported. Method not allowed. So this is valid. Okay. This is valid. await request JSON, return next response dot JSON. This tutorial is valid. Now like, oh, okay, this should be JSON. Writing a different this thing. JSON, yeah. Spot that from here. Okay, so let's run it now. So we should get the correct response now. 200. Okay, good. Login successful. So we successfully created good. Login successful. So we successfully created our login endpoints. So in our page now, we can then create something. You know, currently we have this. We don't have anything yet. So basically, we'll create a form, a login form to interact with our backend. Okay, so let's do some stuff here. We call this input. Okay, we call this input, and we can just add some little styling, class name. We can just add some styling, tests or name. Name will be username. Name will be username. Then we can do placeholder. Please input username. Okay, so test now. Okay, we can just let's duplicate this first and add some styling here. We can do flex column. We can also do, let's say, gap. Give it some gap. Let's give it 10. And of course, you know, we'll be needing a button. You can call this submit. So here we have an on click that we undo, let's say undo submit. So this function will be created. This function will be created later. Then here we can just have on change events. You can say undo inputs. Undo input. So we also duplicate this, put that in here. Okay, so let's reload our page and see what we have. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I won't be doing much of styling. So let's add a state. You add a state. You can call this details that will contain our username and password. Okay, this name should be password. password. Then the function that will update the details. Function that will update the details. And we use useState from React. So let's create the initial state, our default state for username. It should be an empty string. Okay, sorry, I might need to continue without the video. Okay, so we create a useState. Create a useState. Then our password, initial state set to empty as well. Since we are getting some bunch of error, we are importing. Okay, this is coming up because we are using useState. useState is a client-side component, so we have to call useClients. Although in a real project, the way we want to do that is we will actually create these components inside. You can create something like components within this app directory. Then we put that here. Then we just import it. We import the GSS code here on this. So basically, this is still serve as our server component. Then we have, because you can actually have a client component inside a server component. So, but for this tutorial, we just do something not really much. Okay, you are still getting some error. We'll undo that. So we've created all this. So let's undo our inputs. Let's create this function. Undo inputs. So in this undo input, what we do is we actually update the details. We update the details by using our spread operator. Details. And we call e.targets.name. So we can access this property, this and this, via calling e.target.name. So don't forget, we need to add our events. Then we'll call e.targets.value to get the actual value. So anytime we actually click on or input some stuffs here, this will help us to handle the states. Okay, and click undo submit. So let's also undo this submit. We can undo it somewhere here. Const undo submit. We can, okay, I just do console.log. Let's just add this first, then let's see if we still have error here. In a real project, you always handle error much more than you handling even the core logic of your application. Okay, so as you can see, we have our submit button, we have our user inputs, then we have our input username. This should be input password. Okay. Input password. Okay. So let's done this. Then our handle submit. So what we'll do next now is to, okay, before then, let's do e.prevent defaults, our default browser behavior. We prevent it. This should be okay. Um, so let's say via handle submit and the input change on cuts. Okay, we need to pass value. So the value now will be our initial state. We need to bind our initial state to it. Then for this other input, we need to pass our initial state from details dot password. Okay, so this we ensure that we get the value from this input. What let's change this input. Let's add tests black so that we'll see what we are actually typing. And this also do test black. Okay, so let's see why we are having the error. Okay, I think the error is gone. Okay, I'm still having it. Let's see. Type error. Object is not iterable. Cannot read property symbol. Okay. So I think the error stands down to how we are calling. Okay. This should actually be curly. It should be in a curly brace. Since we are using objects, then we'll pick the value, the name and the value. Then of course our value to also have details that okay. So let's see if when we call handle submit, we have something. Let's call data. So let's say we have something like this. Okay, the error is not popping up again. Good. Okay, still loading. Okay, are we getting data? and submit. Okay, good. So we have this, so it means our handle submit is working perfectly, and we can actually make API call to our back end. So this works perfectly. So let's check our payload. I think okay, since we've not actually done we've not make any API call, so basically let's do some stuff like okay, response equals await fetch. So we'll do slash API slash version1 slash login. Await requires async. So we are using fetch API. Then let's call our method. What method are we using? We are using post method. Then our headers. Let's do content type. Content type will be application slash JSON. Okay, so our body now, because we'll be needing data in the body, right? We need data in the body, so we need to stringify the data in JSON format. So what will be our data? Our initial values that we are getting from our useState hook. Yeah, so these details will be retrieved from the user and then sent to the back end. Okay, so we can actually grab our response. Let's say data, because let's say await our response, then we pass it. Then we can just console.log data. So we pass our data. Okay, so we pass our data like so. I think with this setup everything should work perfectly, although we are not doing any logic, like we are not validating our inputs, but in a real project we will do some validation in order to prevent SSL attack and some other malicious attack. So but for this tutorial we won't do much validation. Even in our route file, in our API, we are not really doing much validation, but in a real project we have to validate we validate our inputs, what we are getting in the request body, we validate them. We can enforce password using regex and some other what's it called, methods. So basically let's see what we have. If we will get, let's first run this. Should get an error even from the server. because we are not handling the case whereby the user does not really put although this one should return, this promise should return undefined, which you should be getting invalid email or so. We've made a call. Okay, so what are we getting? We are getting please input a valid username and password. Now the reason why we are getting this is because we are not passing anything. It's not as if the user actually inputted any stores, but when the user is not inputting any stores, like we are checking and we are returning this response. Yeah, please input a valid username, because the user does not even put any password. If the user actually put a password other than what is in the database, it will throw this error. So let's see if the user actually inputs the correct username but wrong password. Okay, can you see we are getting invalid credentials? So basically, if the user is actually inputting let's say the correct information, 1 2 3 4 5, let's see what we have. Okay, can you see in our console we are having login successful? Good. So now nothing is happening because we are not redirecting the user to our authenticated page, which is our dashboard, which should be something like this dashboard. Okay, of course we've already created that. Won't be wasting much time with that. If you actually need styling, you have to probably, you can actually go to Tailwind's website, then you learn some basic concept from there. Once you get familiarized with Tailwind, it is easy to use and it saves a lot of time using native CSS to style your application. So you can see the dashboard now. So basically, let's direct the user. So we can actually check something. Yeah. Data. If data, of course, data will contain success. Don't forget the success I normally talk about. Why returning a response? If success is equals to true, then we want to do something. We want to route dot push our user to /user/dashboard. Okay, so we need to define this route here. So at the top of our function, we can just do const routes equals use router from next navigation. In the latest nextjs, we use next navigation, not next router. This next router will work for older version of nextjs, but next navigation will work for this current version. So once we get this response, we do this. Otherwise, we'll just say you can just do router dot refresh. Okay, you're getting error where if there are the success as the expected line 5. Okay, so the error is gone. Okay, so let this load. Then we see if our code is working as expected. Okay, good. So our username Danny, then password, then we submit. So we've covered useState and then useRouter. Submit. Let's see useState. I get an error. I thought that refresh is not a function. Okay, I just do so that I won't waste much of our time here. Let's do error. Okay, for some reason I thought this refresh seems not to be working, so let's just ignore that for now. Don't forget the main goal is just to log in and then redirect the user to the dashboard and then do some little validation. Okay, please input valid, not valid, and then I thought that push is not a function. Router. Oh, that's true. So basically, even the refresh should work without throwing any error. Due to changes in different version, some of these things could be overwhelming at times. So basically, let's try it now and see. Shouldn't get any error again. Login successful. Okay, I think it has not it was not properly compiled also. Okay, let's reload. Okay, so basically after doing that we get a successful response, then we can log out, so it will direct us back to the login page. If you try to submit, you should get an error in the console. Can you see you are getting an error? Please input a valid username and password. So let's do that again. Submit. Login successful. Good. And we're being redirected back to the login to the dashboard, so we can actually log out and you can actually do some inspection. If you need the payload, you can actually see everything here. Okay, the response from the server, login successful, and all. You have quite a number of things you can actually do. So I hope this tutorial actually helps. See you some other time.